introduction of the seminar. And it's a seminar on forgiveness. And in order to do this, you're going to need a piece of paper and a pen. So if you live here and can get a piece of paper and pen, please do so. And if you don't, we have paper and pen. So if you don't have paper and pen, just raise your hand and it'll be delivered to you. If it's flat, it would be better. Maybe, let me see if it works. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Radha. This is fine. It just gets in the way of my face. What's the other option? Yeah, let's try it. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivaradhari Yashodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Thai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. There's a story, either in Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat, about a man who became envious of Srivas Thakur. Perhaps because Srivas Thakur would not allow him to come to the nocturnal kirtans. Does anybody know why he was envious? Is that? Yeah. These were private kirtans with only pure devotees could come to, that Mahaprabhu had every evening. And if someone wasn't a pure devotee, they weren't allowed. And if they snuck in, Mahaprabhu could sense there was somebody impure, and he would ask them to leave. So this person was not allowed to come. And he became very upset with Srivas Thakur. His name was Gopala Chapala, as far as I remember. And so what he did, he did typically what we find today done on the internet, but there's no internet. He made up a story. I want to do a social experiment. Make up a story that Mahatma Das was seen last night at midnight in the bar drinking. And see how many people go, yeah, I always knew he was a rascal. So it was something like that. He got a plate of articles to worship Durga, which included meat, as far as I remember. He placed it outside his door, and then he sent out the message, however you send it out in a village, that Srivas Thakur is worshiping Durga. He's actually a worshiper of Durga. So technically speaking, blasphemy is considered when you exaggerate a situation or you make up a story about someone that's entirely untrue. If you were late for Mangalartik and I said Abhinandan was late for Mangalartik, that's not blasphemy, it's just a fact. If I say Abhinandan never comes to Mangalartik, that's blasphemy because it's not true. So the reaction to blaspheming in this case of this devotee is he came down with cholera. Is that right? Am I remembering correctly? Yeah. And I think he understood. He got the message. If you blaspheme a devotee, there's a reaction. So one day Mahaprabhu was walking and he said, Mahaprabhu, please cure me of this cholera. I'm sorry for what I did. And Mahaprabhu said, no. He wanted to teach him a lesson. And then he said something very important, which is why I'm telling this story. He said, Gopal, your heart is the most pure place. At least it's supposed to be the most pure place. Why did you allow something so contaminating to enter your heart? Isn't that beautiful? When you wake up the deities, do you wash the altar? Is that the first thing you do? And after you do the offering, artik, you wash the altar. And every time you make an offering, you finish, you wash the altar. Because where Krishna comes, it has to be clean. So Mahaprabhu is saying, if you want Krishna to sit in your heart, it has to be clean. And you've allowed dirt to come in your heart. Why have you allowed this dirt to come into your heart? So we have a lot of dirt in our heart, which gets in the way not only of our relationship with Krishna, it gets in the way of our relationship with one another. And so one of the things we want to try to do this week is to talk about, study, and work on things which can help us purify our hearts in a way that it will help us and it will help our relationships. Now, I want to say something you may not like to hear, but it's true, and I will demonstrate it throughout this week. When you have an issue with someone, the issue is really your issue, not their issue. It's really about you and not about them. We would like to believe it's about them because then we don't have to do anything, right? Well, he's a jerk. So, what do you do with jerks? You just don't deal with them. We don't want to admit that our interaction was not good or his jerky behavior was triggering some jerky behavior in me, but I'd rather blame it on him. I'd rather blame my behavior on him. You ever done that? Blame your ill behavior on somebody else? Yeah. So that's not good. So one of the things we want to do is clean up any kind of ill relationships we have with anybody, because it's a contamination for us, and it's a contamination for the temple and the environment and the community. And I want to tell you a story before we begin. It's really cool. Would you like to hear a story? So there was a devotee who was a leader in our movement. I worked with him for many years, and we built up many projects and temples. And he was a sannyasi at the age of 26. And he became a guru at the age of 27. It was obviously difficult. And at the age of 36, he realized he was not really qualified for either being a sannyasi or a guru, and he stepped down. But the way he stepped down was he didn't tell anybody. He just left. So I was quite upset. I was quite upset because in the wake of him leaving, it was like the Twin Towers crashing. It was devastating for his disciples. And most of the devotees in that zone were his disciples, and I was one of the leaders in the zone, so I had to take the brunt of it. And all kinds of bad things happened, and I developed a resentment towards him. Like I felt betrayed, basically. He could have told us, could have done something, we could have prepared for it. Maybe we could have helped you. So I felt very betrayed. And I assumed that that's how I would feel my entire life. I would just feel betrayed, and I would have an issue with him. that when you have an issue with somebody, it's very unpleasant to be around them, isn't it? You really don't want to see them. If you do see them, you want to distance yourself. You don't want to talk to them. It's because it reminds you of how they hurt you, right? So you start feeling that again. About, I don't know, 16 years ago or something, I started teaching a forgiveness course. I did one here around that time also. And I started the teaching that forgiveness course because I went through a process to forgive this devotee. And it totally transformed me. And I realized that instead of feeling hurt, I should have been compassionate and reached out to him and said, how can I help you? Because actually what he did was quite honest. He didn't wait till he created problems. He said, I think I should leave before I create them. I was upset, but later I realized that was very honest. And that if I were a friend, I would have reached out. But for 18 years, I was angry. Hare Krishna. During those 18 years, I chanted 16 rounds every day. I followed the 4 regular principles, and I don't think I missed one Mangalarti during the 18 years that I was resentful. Just to make a point that these things can happen even when your sadhana is really good. So it's a reality. But here's the story. This is so cool. Sadhu Sangha in America was the third weekend in May. So like 7 weeks ago, we had Sadhu Sangha. There were 4,000 devotees and like 100 Prabhupada disciples. And one morning when we were taking breakfast, all the God brothers had a special place, special room where we would take. This devotee said, can I come and sit and eat with you? I said, sure. And we ate and we talked. And then I realized this was the person that I had an issue with for 18 years, and there was absolutely nothing. I totally forgot I had an issue with him. Isn't that amazing? I completely forgot. And if I remembered, it was like big deal. It's not a big thing. Because once you forgive, it removes all that negative memory within you. We are going to ask you, in this course, we're going to ask you to think of someone you have an issue with. It could be a very little issue. Like, 10 years ago, this Prabhu slammed the door in my face when I was coming in the temple. And it's not a big thing, right? Do you remember anything like that? Some little thing where somebody said something, did something? Yeah. You know why you remember it? Because it's an issue for you. If it wasn't an issue, you wouldn't remember it. There's a million bad things that happen to you, right? That you don't remember. Well, all these things in school, but maybe you remember that one bully in school that harassed you 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or if you're older, 50 years ago. So we are first going to start by asking you to think of some issue you have with someone. And it doesn't have to be big, because you might say, well, I don't have any resentment. But we all have issues with somebody. And specifically, what I think would be the most helpful, and this is going to sound a little weird to you and maybe intimidating, it should be an issue with someone you have in this community. Little anything, just something. My dear Prabhu, how did this impurity get in your heart? It shouldn't be there. Just something that this Prabhu or Mataji said on this day or did, I've got an issue with. It just be a little thing, because we want to clean up. We want to clean up anything impure between us. Because the effectiveness, well, number one, our own heart should be clean of any form of ill feeling towards devotees. Because the ill feelings towards devotees is just a huge contamination and a huge impediment to our bhakti. And if you don't believe me, just read Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, because there's so many examples of devotees who have issues with other devotees, and it didn't come out well. They all suffered, spiritually and materially. For the sake of the development of a community, the better the relationships we have, the better for everybody, the better for the community, better for the greater community who's coming into our community. It's just, and Krishna, it just makes him happy. Once a devotee was asked, a devotee said to a senior devotee, said, I have this resentment and I just can't let it go. I don't know how to let it go. Can you give me an impetus to let it go? And he said something. So, it pleases Krishna. Like, what other impetus do you need to do something? It will please Krishna, it will please Guru. Like, of course. Right? So, we want to put ourselves in an ideal situation. So, what you need to do, you can't do this electronically. You have to do it on paper. I would like you to just write what the issue is, and it's just for you. You don't have to read it to anybody, and you just make it short. Let's say you have an issue like your uncle, who whatever 10 years ago. It would be better if you save that for later and work on something with somebody here. Because I think that's what's most important. I'm sure many of us have issues, like big ones, with non-devotees and people we were raised with or whatever. Or maybe a devotee from another country or something. But if you don't have an issue with anybody here, I'm not going to tell you to have one. Don't make one up just for this exercise. If you don't have an issue with anyone here, if you do have an issue with someone somewhere else, then work on that. Because what you're going to learn, you can apply to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And if you actually don't have an issue at all, I don't believe you. Because I'll just give you an example, just being honest. About 1975 or 76, I was going to the airport with a devotee who had just taken sannyas. And I was senior to him. And I hate to admit this, but it's really stupid. But when we're going into the airport, he said, carry the books. And I was thinking, I'm your senior. You just took sannyas, cool it, We should split it. I didn't say that. I carried the books. But if you ask me, is that an issue? I would say, of course it's not an issue. It's a stupid thing. And if you were a counselor, you would say, it is an issue because you remember it. Because if it wasn't an issue, why do you remember something from 49 years ago that happened over a 2-minute period, just carrying some books, that I thought he should carry or we should split. So if you say, I don't have an issue, and there's anything you can remember just, in an awkward moment with somebody, that's an issue, believe it or not. So if you have an issue with anybody here, it's not good. You don't have to tell them, but it would be good to work on that. So write it down. You had a question?
Yeah, can it be behavior that we resent, that we see constantly, not about the person itself?
In the person, yeah. Behavior. Well, he's asking, is it a one-time off or can it be repetitive? It can be either. It's harder if it's repetitive, but the process to forgive is the same. And the reason we're writing it down, I need like a paper bag or a box or something. I have to explain why we're writing this down. It's just not for you to post online or to publicly read. And it doesn't have to be long and detailed. It just has to be this, like, on this day, this devotee made me carry his books and I resented it. Until this day, I still think of it. That's all it has to be. It just has to be, yeah, okay, cool. Good. What's your equivalent for cool in England?
Calm.
No, but you say that's wicked or something.
Wicked.
Used to be sick. Thanks for the bag. It's totally sick. I'm going to put. Can you get it in front of me and just put it there and open it a little bit so it stays open? Okay. So the reason we're writing this down is that anytime during the week we're going to be talking about forgiveness and how to forgive, and at any time during the week you would like to drop this issue that you have with a person, just let it go, and bury it forever. You know how long forever is, right? Like it's gone. You just come up here and tear up your paper and throw it in this bag. And you can do it anytime. Right in the middle of me talking, you can come up and do it. And you're not obligated to do it. It's voluntary. But something will happen during this week in one session or another, and you may just feel like this is like not worth carrying this feeling or this issue or this resentment. It's not worth it. I'm just going to... And the idea of tearing it up is that you're leaving it here. It's over. It's gone. It's, So you might say, well, what if I don't feel it? Well, don't do it yet. Do it when you feel it. And you might say, well, what if I tear it up and it's not gone? Tear it up because you want it to be gone. And the act of tearing it, and just do it dramatically, but emotion. It is quite dramatic because for some of you, maybe it's an issue that you've had for 10 years that's just been festering in you, and it is a big thing to tear it up. So that's what we're going to do. That's why you've written this down, all right? And so, you don't have to do anything with that paper other than tear it up when you feel like tearing it up. Okay. Yes?
What if previously you had the resentment, but it's kind of resolved already? So
Yeah. Find another one that's not resolved. I have a friend, well, he's actually a disciple, and he entered the 12-step program. And in the 12-step program, you write down all your resentments. And he told me, he said, I had 150 resentments. So if someone says I don't have any, either they're an avatar or they're just not in touch with reality. And they're not honest with themselves. And it doesn't have to be a big thing, but let me say this also, just so you don't get scared. When I say we want to clean up relationships, it doesn't mean that you necessarily will want to have a close relationship with this person, because let's say this person was very abusive to you, but you want to clean it up, but you don't. You feel uncomfortable being close to that person. So it doesn't mean by forgiving you're going to have a relationship, because in some cases you wouldn't want it. In some cases it might not be conducive materially or spiritually. So I don't want you to. Whoa, mighty bomb. Yeah. It's just, you just think about the issue and you go, that's stupid, right? Isn't it? Why carry it? I've carried it long enough. Yeah, thank you. What was I just saying? I forgot. I was saying what?
You don't have to have a relationship.
Oh, yeah. So in some cases, it may not be healthy to have a relationship. So I don't want you to think, oh, I don't know if I want to forgive this person because then I have to go over to their house or invite them over or something. Not necessarily. It's just you've cleaned up anything negative in your mind and heart in connection with that person, but it doesn't mean you want to have a relationship or need to have a relationship. So that's important. And then you might say, well, what if they've done something abusive to me? It doesn't mean that what they did wasn't wrong. It doesn't mean when you forgive them, it means, okay, what you did, you tried to kill me, but that's fine because I forgive you. The important thing to understand is that if you isolate forgiveness from the actions you take in relation to that person, it makes it easier. So if I obviously have a lot of ill feelings towards this person because they did something horrible to me, but my heart is the place where it should be free of any form of envy or resentment or anger or hatred towards any living being. That's the goal. That's where we're going. Bhakti Siddhanta said, you should only desire the greatest good for your worst enemy. So that's where we're going. So resentment exists in your heart. That's one thing. How you deal with a person is a different thing. Keep them separate. And then you can decide how you want to deal with them. Maybe you want a relationship, maybe you don't, maybe friendship, whatever. You want to rid the enmity from your heart. So when the enmity is rid from your heart, when you see that person, nothing. There's nothing there. You won't even remember. Yes?
Is it also healthy to see how someone treats you within reason as an extension of your heart?
Yeah. Because if you see it that way, there's no resentment. So, okay, this is a good point. Theoretically, in the Hare Krishna movement, because we believe in karma, no one should have any resentment because whatever comes to us is a reaction to our karma, right? However, in the Hare Krishna movement, there's a lot of devotees that do have some resentment because we're still human beings. Have you noticed you're a human being? Have you noticed lately? You have challenges with lust, anger, greed, envy, and so on, and hunger and thirst, and defending your false ego and all these things. So this is such a beautiful point because as devotees, we understand things in our head. Yeah, there's karma reaction. But on the ground, there's resentment. So how could you have resentment if you believe in karma? Well, the answer is it's only an intellectualization of what karma is. It's not an embodiment on every level, physically, emotionally. It's not an alignment with my heart. It's my head and heart are in two different places. I'll give you an example. Would you like an example? This is amazing. You might faint when you hear this. Just giving you a warning. This is so beautiful. What happened was horrible, but so what happened was horrible. There's a religious community in America, and there was a shooting at their school. It's a group called the Amish. I don't think you have them here, but they came to America maybe like the 1500s or something, and they've been living off the land since the 1500s, and they don't even drive electric cars. I mean, gasoline. Maybe now they're driving electric. I don't know. They drive horse and buggies, and they're totally off the grid, and they just farm and self-sufficient. They have some businesses, but they're extremely religious people. And there was a shooting in their school. You know how crazy America is. I don't know if you have this here, but it seems like in America there's a shooting like every week somewhere. You get the news of these things? It's crazy. There was one time it seemed like it was every day. It was insane. Anyway, there was a shooting in this Amish school. And I think 3 girls were killed, and I think 7 were injured, something like that. And the families of those 3 girls went to the home of the wife of the man, because he killed himself, to tell her that we forgive your husband for what he did. These were not just members of the congregation. These were the family, the parents of the girls who were killed. You can all say, wow. That's a wow story, right? And then you might be wondering, well, how did they do that? Or some of you might be thinking, they're pretty stupid to do that. No. How did they do that? Well, it was explained to me by someone who knew the people and studied it, and he said, the fact that they did that was not a decision. And I'll explain this in a minute. What did he mean? Like when you have McDonald's here, unfortunately, they haven't made it illegal yet. Kentucky Fried Chicken, you have that? All great exports of America. What else? You have Chick-fil-A? No. Wendy's? Taco Bell, yeah. You like Mexican food? You have burritos here? You eat burritos? Okay. What? Oh. I'll tell you something about burritos. I was in Mexico City and I said, can you make me a burrito? And they said, what's that? It's really an American Spanish dish. Yeah. Anyway, so the man kills himself. The parents go to the home of the woman and say, we forgive you. The pastor analyzed this and he said, the reason I was saying Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, when we go by McDonald's, we don't make a decision not to eat there. It's not even, we don't even think about it, right? Because we only eat prasadam. At least we're vegetarian. So No, I've never seen a devotee driving by McDonald's going, hope I don't go there. Prabhu, help me. You know? Maybe when you go by Starbucks or something. I don't know. You have Starbucks? Yeah. Another great American exporter. So he said, so just like when you go by McDonald's, you do not have to make a decision not to eat because you're a vegetarian from head to toe. It's just what you are, right? You eat prasadam, right? So he said in the same way, forgiveness was and is who they are as people. So they didn't have to make a decision because that's who they are. They're people who forgive. It's built into their culture. It's built into their lifestyle. It's built into their philosophy. It's just who they are. I think you're kind of getting the idea where I'm going with this. There are things that we believe that are not built into our culture. And therefore, I ask this question. I've done this workshop, I don't know how many times, at least 30, and I ask this question. If that happened in our movement, would we do that? And out of 30 times asking, only one person said yes, and I'm convinced they didn't understand the question. Nobody said yes. Like, and that's a pretty interesting reality to contemplate, isn't it? So what does it show? It shows we have a philosophy in our head, but not necessarily in our heart, right? And so this became a very strong impetus to me to start teaching in ways that we can get the philosophy from the head to the heart. And it's said that's the longest distance in the universe, from here to here, head to heart. That's like, you understand what I'm saying? It's like, I understand it. And now, the problem that I've realized is that it's sometimes difficult to understand that it's not in your heart when it's in your head. Because when it's in your head, you think, well, I got it, I understand. Until someday something happens and you fall apart and you realize, well, it was just an understanding, not a realization. So if we can get from our head to our heart in forgiveness, in humility, in compassion, and all these qualities, then we have arrived. And so that's what Krishna consciousness should be, shouldn't it? It's like we should have a culture when something happens. So I joke and like, well, what if that happened? I say, well, we'd have a meeting to decide what should we do now. And, of course, half the people wouldn't be able to come to meetings, so we'd have to say, well, let's do it a week later. And then we'd have the meeting. We're like, what happened, Prabhu? We couldn't decide. Isn't it like typical, We'll have to have another meeting, and we'll ask this one to come. That should not happen. It should be immediate. Like there's no need for a meeting. This is what we do. We are compassionate people. We are forgiving people. We are humble people. We are kind people. It should just be natural. So that's the journey in Krishna consciousness. It's real easy to understand it. I gave a class on humility. Real easy to understand it. Easy to teach it, not easy to be it. Right? When someone comes up to you and said, Prabhu, I think you are a fake, complete fake. And who do you think you are teaching a class on humility? You have no humility. I've known you for so many years. Is it easy to say, thank you, Prabhu, you're right. I agree with you. Is that easy? How many of you would do that? Be honest. Yeah. And humility is the most important thing in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said, through humility, you go back to Godhead. That's what opens the gates to go back to God. He said it's the foundation of bhakti. It's all built on humility. And how difficult that is. Right? Isn't that interesting? Yes?
So it's so much easier when a devotee causes any issue. Because you know that you need to forgive. It's Krishna giving your karma to him and everything. If it's a work colleague, all those things go out of the window and you feel like karma will take care of her. She is the person who is like an aspiring devotee, somebody who is chanting, she's done something ill for him. That's me. So karma will take care of her. That mentality comes in. And it's
the same. It's the same. Shouldn't be any different. Krishna spoke to Arjuna in the battlefield. That was the first corporate preaching program. That was his office. So, like, okay, we're in your office. This is how you do your work. With tolerance and humility and compassion. Krishna's looking at you all day. So we have this little meditation. I want to give you a little meditation now. It's a meditation on how well are we living our philosophy. Because our philosophy is not just meant to be taught and talked about. It's meant to be lived, right? Isn't it? Yes? Yes or no? Yeah. Everybody here? Meant to be lived, right? Yes. Okay. So, we have a screen here. Imagine, unknown to you, I had videos of you for the last 3 months, 24 hours a day, audio and video. Everything you said, everything you did, every interaction you had, at work, at home, with your parents, with your wife, your husband, grandparents, friends, out there on Sankirtan. One time I gave a book to a guy and he tore a page out of the book, gave it back and spit at me. And he was from England, believe it or not. That's what like American would do. I'm going to need to plug this in. Yeah, the charger's in the back. I forgot where I was going. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. When I get tired, I forget. Also, getting old doesn't help. Okay, so we have this recording of all of you, unbeknown to you. Of course, you can sue me now for doing this, but this is all theoretical. But let's say it was true. And I'm taking volunteers. We're going to see the highlights of your life, and I've isolated all the things that aren't Krishna conscious in it. So if your whole life is Krishna conscious, it's like, yeah, you can show, because I'll highlight the good also. If I'm living in integrity with bhakti, you would say, yeah, show everything, because I live Krishna consciousness 24/7. I don't just live it in my head. I don't show it when I come to the temple and go home and do something differently. Okay, can we have a show of hands? Who would be willing? And if you're willing, it means it's all good. Who would be willing? Raise your hand. And I'm not saying some of you aren't all good. I'm just throwing this out. Imagine, right? Okay, so if there's anything in that movie you wouldn't like shown, it's probably because it's out of integrity with the values of Krishna consciousness, right? That time you got in a fight over something with this devotee. You can reflect on where you're out of alignment with what we should believe. And you'll start to find you're out of alignment in many ways. If you were not out of alignment, you'd say, yeah, show the video, no problem. Right? That's the point we want to come to. So when I come back next year, you'll all go, yeah, show the video. Maybe actually by the end of the week, show the video, I'm ready. Okay. This is extremely important. If we want, not if, the goal of Krishna, well, I don't know if you know this story. This devotee was guarding Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada came out, and he said, Srila Prabhupada, how can I serve you? And he said, you can go where I haven't gone. And he said, but Prabhupada, you go everywhere. And he said, no, I can't go into the future. You will be alive. You can go into the future. And then Prabhupada said, he said, what I want you to do is that I want you to show everyone that God loves them, and I want you to show it by your behavior towards them. Isn't that beautiful? I want you to show people, not tell people. I want you to show people that God loves you by your behavior towards them. And I thought, well, that's pretty much just gives us the whole point of the Krishna conscious movement. That by our behavior, we should show Krishna's love. We should show what is Krishna consciousness. Now, we have this very interesting situation that I've been in. Very interesting. Would you like to hear?
Yes.
I went to one temple to do a forgiveness workshop. But in that temple, forgiveness had been talked about so much, over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, that after the first hour of the workshop, we didn't even do one exercise. We didn't even start. Everyone ripped up the paper. It's like, wow. Because in some workshops, people don't rip up the paper till the last minute. Some people, they're just waiting, and it's like, everyone's ripped it up. I might as well do it. This was the first hour. And they told me, he said, our Guru Maharaj, he talks about this constantly. And then I was thinking, this is such a good example, because whatever values you want to communicate, whatever values you want the community to imbibe, talk about it all the time in class. So you have, let's say, whatever your values are, it's humility, compassion, forgiveness, etc. And then every speaker say, try to talk about this, one of these qualities. Just bring it into your class, and you will hear about it over and over and over again so much that it will start to become part of your culture. Because that's how you create culture. By hearing about the qualities that we should be. We're not making up a culture. The culture's already there. We're just hearing about it. Then, that was the good news. Now it's time for the bad news. Then I went to a temple which was erupting. What was it erupting with? It was erupting with, I'll just say it was erupting in a bad way. And they asked me to come there to give a course on cooperation and working together, and I said, no, I won't. And they said, why? I said, because you have a leader that will not endear cooperation and it's going to be a waste. And everything I say, it's going to be worse, because I'm going to tell you how to do it, and then in your temple you're going to see it's done the opposite way. They said, no, please come, please come. And I said no, and then finally I said, okay, but I'm warning you. And what I predicted happened, exactly. And I had come into a culture which was adverse to what I was teaching. And therefore, no matter what I taught, because the culture was different, nobody could learn it, because they didn't have experience of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think all of you who are teachers have probably noticed this consciously or unconsciously. You really can't teach into a culture that's antagonistic to what you're teaching, because no one has experience of that. And they think, oh, he's talking about humility. Well, I saw this senior Prabhu. He's puffed up like, Indra, like, what's this humility stuff? And they go, I don't see it. So why should I try to be humble? Because I don't see it. There is a god brother of ours named Jayananda. You must have heard of him. He had no false ego, zero, not even like 0.001, nothing. And when you're in his presence, you just became a devotee just by his presence. It was like overbearing. It was like, this person's a saint. That's the power of living. That's the power of living the qualities of a devotee. You might say, well, I'm not humble and I'm not forgiving. Like, that's okay, but practice it. Live it, Do humble actions. Do forgiving actions. If you can't be forgiving, do forgiving actions. You'll become forgiving by doing it. Do humble actions. You'll become humble. Yes?
What are forgiving actions?
Bake a cake. Find the person you don't like and bake them a cake. The real forgiving action is to let any kind of resentment or hatred towards that person out of your heart. Because in studying forgiveness, I had to study things related to forgiveness, like hatred, like anger, because they're all like in this. They're all just varieties of the same thing. Anger, envy, hatred, resentment. It's all just different flavors of basically the same consciousness. So as I was studying it and studying compassion, we find that Prabhupada and our acharyas have said there's no place in the heart of a Vaishnava for envy, for hatred, for anger, for any of these things, right? And so you might say, well, I'm envious. So Prabhupada said, if you are envious, you should serve the person you're envious of. That's the cure. If you're resentful, then you should serve that person. You should appreciate them, I'm going to go up to you, because I'm envious of you. I'm going to go up to you and I'm going to say, Abhinandan, I appreciate you and for so many things. That's going to cure my envy. And it's going to help us in our relationship. So the basic action that our Shastra tells us to perform to cure any disease of the heart is the opposite action of what you want to do. Like, I want to tell you, I hate you. You're so much smarter than me. I hate you. You're such a better devotee than me. I hate you. That's what's in my heart, right? So what's the opposite of that? I appreciate you. It's really powerful. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's really powerful. If you think about anything you're dealing with, think about what would be the opposite action of the way I feel. And you will find that opposite action, even if it's artificial, even if it's fake, if you just do it, it's going to affect you, because what you do with your body affects your consciousness. Right? You want me to prove it to you? Go like this and put your head up. Do that. How do you feel? Humble? Okay, now do this. Let's do this. How do you feel? Feel different? All we did was move the body differently. So actions affect consciousness. So if I go to Abhinandan and say, I appreciate, so many things about you, that removes the envy. It's a process of removing the envy. And I think the best practice of humility, or one of the most important, is cooperating, making sacrifices, compromising, apologizing, even if it's not your fault, because sometimes you just need to apologize to calm the situation down. And so you might say, I'm sorry. And you didn't even do anything wrong. It's a practice of humility. So we have, okay, yes.
You were talking about how if we've forgiven, we won't remember.
Yeah.
But is that the goal? Don't we want to remember just in case we...
Well, let me rephrase it. You won't have an emotional connection. You won't have a dysfunctional, toxic emotional connection. You might remember, but it's not going to be connected with negative emotions. You might want to remember because this person abused you, and like, okay, if I forget, they'll do it again. But you will forget the emotion. Isn't that nice? So if you want to remember, you can. I didn't need to remember with this devotee because he wasn't dangerous for me and I liked him.
Just to add to that, Maharaj, if we have anarthas that we can see from our interaction with the situation or the issue,
Our own anarthas. Yeah.
then do we still want to go ahead with the resolution?
Yeah, because I'll say this, I already said it, but I'll say it again, and we'll talk about it more this week. In studying forgiveness for whatever it was, 18 years, reading many books about it, practicing it, looking at our philosophy in relation to forgiveness, studying psychology in relation to forgiveness, one of the most important things is you realize that your resentment is because of you and your consciousness and your nature. And I'll give you an example. My example, I felt betrayed. You know why I felt betrayed? Because I was betrayed before. I was betrayed several times. So now I'm sensitive to betrayal. The same event happened the whole temple, everyone, or in his whole zone. Not everyone was angry. Some people were actually happy he left. Completely different reaction from me. So was he the cause of my feeling betrayed? No, it was a issue that I had because I had been betrayed. So you will find in any issue you have, in any resentment you have, there was an expectation that was unmet, and that expectation came from you. Because I can almost guarantee you never told that person well, if you're married, you might have. But generally, you probably didn't tell the person what you were expecting of them. You just assumed they would know. But you all of us in this room have different expectations because we're all different. And it's such an important point because one event happens and we have 25 people in this room or whatever. There could be 15 different reactions in this room to one event. And they're all blaming it on the event. And it had nothing to do with the event. The event was only triggering what was inside of you. So when there's a resentment or an issue, it's too easy to blame the other person. The other person was just triggering it. And then, so it's for you to deal with it. So I'll give an example. When you squeeze an orange, what comes out? Orange juice. Why? Because it's in the orange. You don't get pineapple juice. So when you're squeezed, what comes out of you? Maybe anger, maybe sadness, maybe depression, maybe violence. There'll be so many things. And we're getting squeezed all the time. Right? I mean, life squeezes. So life is squeezing us. Right? Yeah, last week it was hot. We got squeezed by heat. It's crowded here now, tourist season. It's squeezed by too many people. It's noisy, whatever it is. Your roommate bothers you, he squeezes you. We're all getting squeezed. But what's coming out is not something your roommate or this person put in you. They're just squeezing you. They're triggering it. And so that is the information. And the whole problem with resentment is all pointing the finger at the other person. It's like, you did this and you made me feel this way. Nobody made you feel anyway. That was an issue. It's really important. You make me angry. You want to be sarcastic and nasty and said, no, you're already angry. I can't make you angry. Did they make Jesus angry when they tried to kill him? No. Why? There was no anger. Did they make Takaharidas angry when they tried to kill him? No. What came out of Takaharidas when they tried to kill him? Compassion. For us, just realistically, if we're being beaten to death like that, we'll probably be thinking, if I live through this, you better watch out. I'm going to find every mafioso in Navadweep. That would be the natural human response, isn't it? Okay, so the challenge or the problem when you become a devotee is we're not supposed to act on our human response. We're supposed to act like a sadhu even if you don't feel like it. You are harassing me and I feel like grabbing your neck and banging your head against the wall. There's a story that there was a devotee who was used to be KGB, and he became temple president, and he'd always get angry and yell at devotees. And so once devotees went and said, Prabhu, this is not good. You're always yelling at us. And he said, you should have seen me before. He said, before, if you did that, I would have killed you. So he's doing good. So sometimes the job that we have as devotees is you can't become sadhu overnight, but you can act like one. You can try to act like one in spite of how you feel. So this devotee is, causing you problems, but your job is how to act in spite of how you feel. Act like a sadhu. And by doing that, it purifies you, and that's how you become. Do you think if you act humbly every day in spite of how you're treated, you won't someday become humble. It's impossible you wouldn't, right? And if you don't, it's impossible you will, right? So the more you practice, the better you get. So if you practice being proud, you'll get good at it. If you practice anger, you'll get good at it. If you practice resentment, you'll get good at it. And that's part of the problem. We keep practicing acting out, and so we get really good at being bad. So if you practice being good, in spite of how you feel, I have personal experience. I've done this with many devotees. We can do it this week with exercises. I can ask you to act, to think a certain way towards the person who hurt you, a positive way, and you will see when you do that, your heart starts to change. You'll feel differently. Just by even faking it, artificial, okay? Think of this person that you wrote about, right? Think a nice thought about them. Just think something nice, something good. You're like, there's nothing good about them. Yeah, their mother loves them, you know. Something nice, right? Not that, you know, they have nice neck beats, you know, something, quality, characteristic, something, right? Can you find something nice? Yeah. You feel a little different now? Was that forced upon you to feel that, to think something nice? Yeah. Did it come naturally? Maybe not. But you did it. That's the practice. You force yourself to act in the way you would act if you had the quality. If you were forgiving, that's how you would think. Nice person, you know. If you were not envious of this person, you would have all kinds of appreciation for them. So I'm envious, so I'm going to try to appreciate. But that's the cure. It's the antidote, the exact opposite way you feel. Does that make sense? And that's what we're supposed to be doing as devotees. Now here's the problem. Would you like to hear the problem? Because this is a problem you're going to relate to. As I said, I had issues with this devotee for 18 years, and during those 18 years, 16 rounds, 4 principles, Mangalartik, I was temple president, Sankirtan, doing like 24 hours engaged. Why was that happening? Because I thought, because I go to Mangalartik and chant 16 rounds and do service, I'm good. So being resentful didn't even register as a problem. Because I'm good, you know. Go out and distribute 100 Bhagavad Gitas, I'm good, you know. Like I can do any damn thing I want. Yeah? You know that story, you've heard that story, Prabhupada finished his rounds and put his bead bag down and was joking, said, now I can do any damn thing I please. So it's like I'm good on this level, and it can cause me to not notice when I'm not good on another level because I think this, like, I'm covered, you know. Prabhupada said 16 rounds, 4 principles, back to Godhead, so why do I have to worry about anything else? How long do we have to go?
Usually we finish at 8:30.
Yeah.
It's a little over. So.
Yeah. Because I won't be able to get through everything unless we go a little longer. This is amazing. This next thing I want to tell you is so beautiful. I should have a cliffhanger for tomorrow. Like, I'm going to tell you a story that's going to blow your mind tomorrow. But this one I will tell you today. There's a book by Bhakti Thakur. It's called Jaiva Dharma. After you read Prabhupada's books a few times, this book is like, whoa. This book is amazing, the way he explains the philosophy. And there's things in this book that come out that maybe are not obvious. So here's the story, and here's what he said. I was once talking to a person who was a therapist or something, or a hypnotherapist or something, and he invited us to his place to do kirtan. And he was counseling a devotee, and he told the devotee he needs forgiveness. I told him I teach forgiveness. He goes, well, that's interesting because I was telling a devotee that I was counseling that he needs forgiveness, and the devotee said, well, that's not part of our philosophy. Interesting, right? Because, I mean, if you think about it, like, give me some verses on forgiveness. It's not so common. Like, give me something, you're not the body. All right. Dehi no smin, you know. Give verses on tolerance. Yeah, that's similar. what's the verse on forgiveness? Where is it? There are not that many. You have to find them. And I'm going to give you one. This is the one to end all one. This is amazing. So in Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that bhakti is composed of three things. Just as khichdi is composed of rice, or maybe you could say rice, dal, and water. Three things. Number one, compassion. Well, not in any order. One is compassion. Prabhupada has talked about compassion as one of the most outstanding qualities of a bhakta. You don't find compassion amongst other spiritualists on the level you'll find in bhakta. It's the distinguishing factor. Prabhupada was willing to make unlimited sacrifices to save people. His compassion is totally off the charts. He told his disciples, go to the Eastern Bloc in the 70s, and they said, oh, only meat, they only have meat to eat. And Prabhupada said, go, then you have to eat meat. But Prabhupada, what about our consciousness? Damn your consciousness. What did he mean? Like, not that we eat the cow, and I don't think Prabhupada really thought they'd have to do that, but his point was, there's billions of people that are suffering, and you're just, just go, do it. That's Prabhupada's compassion. Compassion is defined as not being able to tolerate the sufferings of another person. So then he said, the next quality is humility. Humility puts everyone above you. You respect everyone. And then he said something really interesting. He said, if somebody hurts you and you're humble, you don't want to retaliate because your compassion does not want to see them suffer, number one. And number two, you don't want to see them suffer on your account. Isn't that interesting? Like, I don't want to retaliate against you because I don't want you to suffer. Like when someone says, Prabhu, please forgive me, I know I offended you. And you're like, maybe. I'll think about it. No, that's not Vaishnava. Because now that person will suffer. If you don't forgive them, if they hurt you, they need your forgiveness. That's how it works. So, Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, I don't want to see anybody suffer, and you add humility to that, is I don't want to see them suffer on my account. That's his humility. And he said, you mix them together, what do you get out of that? Forgiveness. And then he said something, the first time I read this, I was like, oh my Govinda, I never heard this before. He said, therefore, bhakti is composed of three things, compassion, humility, and forgiveness. Wow. So if someone says, what's the importance of forgiveness? Well, there it is. That's what bhakti is made out of. Is that amazing? But I think if you go deeply into our books, you will see how all these qualities are essential: humility, compassion, forgiveness, tolerance. There's just they're you can't bypass them by doing some good sadhana or good service. You can't say, well, I don't need to practice these qualities because I distribute a lot of books. That will be your death. And so many devotees, as young devotees, we all used to think like this. It's like we had a pass. We just did a lot of service, so we had the pass. We didn't have to develop qualities of a Vaishnava. So, I would like to do one exercise, with your permission. Is that okay? You have a question? Did I answer your question, or your? Wait, yeah. So this is not a fun exercise, but it's extremely important. So I ask your forgiveness in advance. It's really necessary to do this. I want you to think about this issue that you have written on your paper. And I want you to allow yourself to feel how this issue makes you feel. So I'll give you an example. When I did this exercise and allowed myself to feel, I said, where in my body do I feel this? What does it feel like? And so I started thinking, it was like, feels like I have a diamond in my heart that's dripping poison. So like I was attached to the resentment. It was giving me some power and so forth, but it was dripping poison. That's how I felt. Other devotees said, I feel like I have blocks of cement on my head, a chain around my neck. I'm in prison, I have the key, and I don't let myself out. I'm stabbing myself, all these kinds of analogies. So just meditate, just allow yourself to feel the pain of this problem you have, this resentment, and come up with an analogy of what it feels like. And just, suffer a little bit. It's important. I want you to suffer because it's going to help you get over this. It's really important. So excuse me for causing you suffering, but just allow yourself to feel it. Okay? Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? An analogy.
It feels like shackles that are holding you behind. Strong shackles.
Just wait, wait. I'm just take another minute to meditate on it. You may even feel like you've let yourself down by allowing this to fester in your heart. You may feel like a hypocrite. There's so many things you could feel. Okay, forgive me for causing this misery. The reason, well, would someone like to share? We'll take a little sharing. Yes, how do you feel?
It's like walking with a curtain and drawing that curtain to close myself whenever I meet that person.
Oh,
Like when I cross her, like whatever she's going to say next 5 minutes is going to be against me, so let me just put the curtain and
Yeah.
stand behind it.
how does it feel?
Very closed and like always.
Yeah. Hiding, having to hide. Okay, Abdullah said he felt like he was being shackled from the back.
Yeah, like shackles holding you, and you're just thinking about the person and what they did, and you just can't move on, so it's shackles.
You can't move. The person, yeah, okay. Anyone else?
Like sandpaper rubbing your heart.
Sandpaper rubbing your heart, Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yeah. It's painful. Anyone else? Yes.
Do you know those gardening tools? Those tools you use to garden, when you like pull up the weeds? It
Oh, yeah.
comes out of my chest.
Ooh, Hare Krishna. Wow. Hare Krishna. What else?
Feels like clutter, like we're in a messy room.
Uh-huh.
Clutter.
Cluttered. Heart is cluttered. With a cluttered mess. Yeah. Okay. The reason we did this exercise is for all of us to realize that when we carry any kind of anartha, it's painful. And we don't even realize how painful it is because we suppress the pain. Because anything emotionally painful, our natural response is, shh. Because who wants to feel this pain? If you know this is how it feels, it's a real impetus to let it go in and of itself. I have a story. Beautiful story. It's a story about a teacher who told her students when they go home in the afternoon to write the name of someone they hate on a potato. And if it's more than one, then 2 potatoes, 5, whatever. And how many people, it was like kids, I guess they were like 12. So write the name of those you hate on a potato and put those potatoes in a bag and bring them back to class. And then when they came to class, she said, so it would have been Tuesday, or let's say she gave the assignment on Friday. I don't know details, but so they came Monday with their bag, and she said, okay, for the whole week, your assignment is you have to carry this bag with you 24/7. You can never drop it, which if you had a lot of potatoes is a problem. And you have to shower with it in, sports, gym, and so obviously everyone was, frustrated with it. And so when Friday came, she said, if you are carrying hatred in your heart, it's just like this. It's just weighing you down. It's painful. And often the example has been given by many people. Say, when you carry a burden, you hold, no, I'm holding it. It doesn't weigh that much, maybe a kg or something. But I can't hold this all day. It's just, it's going to feel, in a while, it's going to feel like 2 kgs or 5 or 2. That's what's going on. That's what we're holding on to. And it's important to be aware of that because these anarthas hurt us. They're destroying us. It's like we're like abusing ourselves by holding on to them. Krishna says the mind can be the enemy, holding on to resentment, holding on to envy, to greed, lust, anger. It's all harming us. And it's such a important realization to understand that whatever anartha we carry around, it's hurting. We're hurting ourselves. We're our worst enemy. And when you let it go, that's the greatest act of self-care, to let it go. Does that make sense? Okay, questions? And then, can we go till 9 without getting in trouble? Yeah, okay. Yes, let him go first.
So I guess I've been trying to practice sincerity recently, and I'm wondering how your advice to kind of do the opposite and maybe artificially glorify someone lines up with practicing sincerity.
Well, it's a good question because you may not feel like doing something. Haribo. So far we have 2 liberated souls here. If I am going to do something and I don't feel like doing it, is that what you're asking? And how to sincerely do it before you feel like doing it?
Yeah, or just not, like you're saying, doing it artificially.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of that being
faking
very
to
fake.
make it. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is a Haribo. You're a good audience, so I guess we won't have to have any more classes on forgiveness. Okay. I have a question for those who tore their papers up. Do you feel a little lighter now? Yes? You feel a little lighter? A little relieved? Yeah, I would think so. So this is a great question. He's asking, how can you be sincere if you're doing something and you don't even mean it? Kind of like, I'm gonna glorify Abhinanda and I don't even mean it. How can I be sincere about it? I'm sincere because it's a process. That is the process. How can I be sincere about my japa? I don't even like to chant. And I have to force myself, I made a vow, I'm gonna stay in the temple room for the whole japa class. And during the whole japa class, I just want to jump out and look at my phone. And every 15 minutes and check out the maha and whatever, So I'm chanting horrible japa, thinking about my phone, thinking about the maha, thinking about whatever, but I'm sincerely trying. That's the point, because it's the process. And if you think it's artificial, then I would say when you begin bhakti, everything you do is artificial. Because everything we're doing is going against our conditioned nature. Artificial to get up early, artificial to chant Hare Krishna, artificial for me to be nice. I'm never nice to anybody, you know. To be nice to people I don't like, that's totally artificial. But when you study what bhakti is, it's living those qualities 24/7. At least practicing them. I don't feel like being nice to you, but I have to practice it. That's important. And by doing it, the most important thing is by doing it, those qualities develop. That's how they develop. That's what sadhana means. You chant every day, someday you're going to like to chant. You go out on book distribution, you're like terrified. I can't go up to anybody. And, you know, a month later, we can't get you off the street, you know. It's like, Prabhu, let's go back. It's, oh, come back later. I want to stay, you know. That's how it works. So it's like you will have a better experience by sincerely doing it, even if it's artificial. It will give you an experience like, wow, that was amazing. You know, I glorified him, and it's like my envy is dissipating. Is that okay? Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna. How do we reduce the tendency of shoving things down?
Oh yeah.
Taking out and deal with it instead of just delaying.
He's asking, like, when things are painful for us, mentally or emotionally or psychologically, whatever, we tend to shove them down precisely because they're painful and we don't want to feel them. The problem is they don't go away by shoving, because you push them down and you're not conscious of them doesn't mean they're not acting. And when you get triggered, that's what's getting triggered, that thing you push down, you know. Abdullah says something to you and it reminds you of your older brother who used to harass you, and then you're just like, ah! Abdullah, try to throw him out the window. And you're like, what happened? It's because you didn't deal with that. So I was like, up till about 20 years ago, I was like really good at suppressing. I didn't know, because you don't know, because and the reason I think a lot of us suppress is because we think these emotions will harm us, you know, and so we kind of equate controlling our senses with suppressing our emotions. You know, if I have a sensual desire or some attachment that's unhealthy, I just try to control it. It's just basically I try to push it out of my mind, push it out of my heart. With emotions, it's different. The way you heal them is by facing them, like facing the pain, and you work through it. I often give the example. This is really, really good. This is really helpful. We'll use the example of me being envious of Abhinandan, right? Joy. You're all going to be all lovey-dovey now. Kissing and hugging. And there was a story, devotees were always fighting, and then two devotees were hugging. And Prabhupada saw them, he goes, yes, hugging, much better than fighting. Yeah, so when, so I'm envious of Abhinandan, and I don't want to admit I'm envious, because, you know, I want to feel like I'm a pure devotee. You like feeling like a pure devotee, right? Like I'm a great devotee, you know. Who wants to feel like they're a horrible devotee, you know, lower than the lowest, you know? I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to admit I'm envious, so I suppress it. So even though I'm envious, I don't acknowledge it. I don't admit it, right? Because it's painful. How about this one instead? How about a little talking to myself? Mahatma, you're envious of Abhinandan. How does it feel? And I allow myself to feel that envy. Not feel it in a way that I'm going to show my envy, but allow myself to feel what envy feels like. Just like we just did now. I got you to feel what resentment feels like. It feels horrible, right? You can do that with envy. Feel your envy. Allow yourself to feel it. You'll want to get rid of it if you allow yourself to feel it. You'll want to work through it. You want to heal it. You won't want to carry it. And you can do that with lust, anger, greed, anything. You can't work through it unless you face it. So I had this thing, face it, feel it, deal with it, and do it. And so face it means don't suppress it, face the reality. Deal with it means feel it. Face it, face it, first acknowledge it, and then allow yourself to feel it. How does it feel? And then how am I going to deal with it? And I decide, well, I'm going to bake him a cake. And I'm going to go out and book distribution and carry his books. That's the do it. Face it, feel it, deal with it. That's my plan. And then do it. Then I go out and do it. That's how you work through it. So don't suppress that. If you feel envious or angry or lust or anything, just say, allow yourself to feel. How does it feel? Feels like I'm a dog, basically. Or, I just feel horrible. I don't want to feel this way. And I start to detach. Otherwise, I'll repress the envy. I'll suppress it. Or repress it means I don't even know I have it. But I know I have it, and I suppress it, then I pretend I don't have it. And then I'm still envious because I haven't faced it. I haven't dealt with it. And Abdul says, seems like you're envious of Abhinanda. No, I'm not. I'm not envious. I like him. But I actually am, and I can't admit it because I've suppressed it. And therefore I can't deal with it. And then I'm going to act in ways, Abhinanda, he comes back and he's, he did 200 Bhagavad Gitas today. Yeah, it's probably, he just got his uncle gave him some money and he just gave him away. I'll have something. It's like, why would I say that? Because I'm envious. It'll come out. That makes sense? Okay, we have 3 minutes. Whoever gets the microphone gets to ask.
Krishna. Okay, I'll speak. What if we have resentment or envy for someone who may be harmful or critical towards the principle of bhakti or our community?
Yeah. It can be, anger can be healthy. And I always say, don't become angry unless you can use that anger in service. So if you become angry towards, maybe it's a philosophy that that's an apasiddhanta, and this person is promoting it, you can become angry at that, and that will give you energy to defend it and protect the devotees. But that anger is different than the mode of passion. So never worry about something unless it's going to help your bhakti or help someone else's bhakti. Never become angry about something unless it can help your bhakti or someone else's. Never become anything about anything unless it can help. So there's a place for anger and envy and all that in bhakti, but it has to be used properly. And if someone is harming the movement or harming devotees, if you didn't become angry, there would be something wrong with you. You should become angry because that anger will cause you to protect the movement from such people. We saw with Prabhupada sometimes become terribly angry at impersonalists. And the reason is because if you follow the impersonal path, it'll destroy your bhakti, or it'll never allow bhakti to grow in your heart. And Prabhupada's mission was to take everyone back to Krishna, and you can't take everyone back to Krishna unless they awaken their relationship. So the impersonalists are destroying that. It would make him so angry. Plus, they're denying that he's a person. He has no face, he has no lila. And it's just angered Prabhupada so much that sometimes he couldn't control it. That's out of love. So, it would be our duty. But at the same time, we shouldn't allow any kind of hatred, material hatred, to exist in our heart. That's the point. No passion or ignorance should be in our heart. So, Arjuna was angry and he fought, but that was not passion. He had to be angry to fight. That's his duty. But he was fighting for Dharma. He wasn't fighting so he would get a kingdom and enjoy. So it's different. It's fighting to protect other people. As long as it's for the right reason, then, anger is just energy. So don't get angry if you can't use it properly. If you can't use it properly, it's Rajagun or Tamagun. Right? Yeah. One more question. We'll take one more question, and then if you have more, you'll have to ask me personally.
Thank you for the wonderful first day of the workshop, Maharaj. If we let go, we forgave someone, but the event that we went through them still causes us pain. Does that mean we fully let go, or maybe
That means you haven't forgiven completely.
Even if that person showed up again, and you're like internally trying to, it's not.
If you remember the event, but there's no negative emotion with it, you've forgiven. If you remember the event and there's negative emotion, you haven't completely forgiven, because that forgiveness will destroy that. What psychologists tell us is you remember things that have emotional charge. So if you look at your life and you think there's a million things that happen, and you could probably remember like 20 things you did in your life. Like, why? Do you ever remember something and think, why out of all the things I did, I remembered that? Probably because there was some emotional experience that's pretty intense when that happened, or is having some importance for you, right? So that emotional charge and the pain of that event is lessened through forgiveness.
So we have to get to the point of seeing them and almost forgetting that happened.
You don't have to try. It's just if the emotion's not there, you might remember it happened, but it won't mean anything. It doesn't matter. Oh yeah, you did this. Ha ha ha. I remember that. It's like it's just an event like every other event. So many events in your life have no negativity to them. Wouldn't it be nice that this event was the same? That's what happens when you forgive. And if we're going to have better relationships, then we have to be able to forgive and not and just try to live like a Vaishnava. Be humble, be compassionate, be kind, all these things. The last thing I want to say, which is so important, I think more important than any class we can give is how we behave as a community. That will teach people much more. Because anything you say in class, if you don't live it, it's worse. Better don't say it. Because people will see hypocrisy. But if you live it, you don't have to say it. You've already said it better than you could say it. And that's so important. So, people are suffering out there. They don't want to come in a community where the same suffering is going on and they see the same things. So that just forget it. They want to see something different. And I think it's our duty to show them something different. We can't show them that we're like everyone else. We have to show them we're different. And so we try to act as Vaishnavas, as sadhus. Even though we're not there yet, we try to act as best we can, and that's how we'll come there. And we'll do a beautiful exercise tomorrow to really push it, maybe a few exercises. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, then I'll just come up here. And we take prasadam here? Is that the plan? Downstairs? Yeah. All right, I'll hang out here for a while if you have anything. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Landanishwar ki jai, Thai Go Premanand. Hari Bol.
It'll take a while. My office colleague, so it should be